Welcome back to Movie Talk. On today's show, we are covering the Viacom-CBS merger and what that might mean for Paramount Pictures and some of their products. On top of that, we've got a Harry Henry segment of the show where we're just going to cover all of the Henry Golding and Harry Styles news because that seemed like an appropriate thing to do. Why not? And then we're going to wrap up the show actually with a third story today because we have a super cool exclusive courtesy of our own Jeff Sneider, and we've also got John Rocha on the desk today.
Oh, yeah, him too. We got him too.
Me too.
He's here.
I knew that was coming. I knew.
Yeah.
Are you guys okay? Are we doing all right? It's the beginning of the show. We'll get there eventually.
This guy wants to rewrite history. He's driving me crazy about himself.
Push pause on that story. We will get to it. I can assure you of that. All right. So first story, CBS and Viacom. Yesterday it was announced that CBS and Viacom have entered into a definitive agreement to combine in an all-stock merger, creating a combined company with more than $28 billion in revenue. The new entity will be known as Viacom CBS Incorporated, and it's now a stronger power player that combines the company's #1 ratings across all key TV demographics and strong performances across all genres with direct-to-consumer offerings as well as feature film production through Paramount Pictures. So it's funny covering this today after we had our conversation about Fox yesterday. So my question for you guys to kick this off is this the only way to play the entertainment game at this point, to just merge into like this big monster of an entertainment company?
Yeah, I would say, 5-10 years ago or whatever, you saw a lot of companies scaling down, and now you're seeing them scale back up. I think that is the future. It's these large conglomerates. Like, you need that arsenal of IP, and you need all that firepower to take on the Apples and Facebooks and Netflixes and Amazons of the world. You see that Warner Brothers is doing its HBO Max thing. All studios will eventually have their own thing like that, and it makes sense that Viacom and CBS would get back together as the streaming wars, they're as wrapped up in them as anybody else.
Mm-hmm. I know most of our conversations on Movie Talk about similar stories have had a negative tinge to it, but when it comes to this deal in particular, I was reading some of the quotes in the Variety piece, and there's certain little bits here, like this one from Sherry Redstone. Through CBS and Viacom's shared passion for premium content and innovation, we will establish a world-class multi-platform media organization that is well-positioned for growth in a rapidly transforming industry. When I think about that kind of thing, I mean, what are these companies supposed to do? Roll over and die and not merge and try to put themselves in that position? Yeah. So I am just a little encouraged to hear that there's more competition, more viable competition in that space right now.
Yeah, but I also think it's not negative. It's just how you do it, right? And so if you're I'm essentially calling these things like Voltron Film Studios, where everyone just comes in, connects, and they create a massive thing at the end of the day. And that's what it feels like, that we're having this war of the gargantuans who are all coming in and battling each other for our dollar. And this is the way it goes, because they're essentially becoming pseudo cable companies in that you get all these channels or all this content once you subscribe to this. So the humans have been conditioned in terms of cable to be like, okay, I'm going to pay this much, I get all these channels. So if I pay this much, I get all this content now, or all these streaming situations. And so that makes sense to me, and you're taking advantage of the dollar. And you feel as a consumer, especially with Disney, that announcement, I think the rumored announcement of Hulu and ESPN and Disney Plus at $13 a month or $14 a month, that's in your mind. You're like, I get all that for $14 a month. It makes you want to be part of it more. And I'm a subscriber to the Paramount Network because of Yellowstone, but I don't know what else is on there. That I don't want to see the Ink show or anything like that. But if you start giving me some Mission Impossible shows, some offshoots, some Star Trek shows, then I might be into it.
Well, we are talking about things like CBS, Showtime, Nickelodeon, MTV, BET, Comedy Central, and Paramount Network. So there's a lot of content here, but even just shifting our focus right now to Paramount and the brands that they have, we've got big franchises like Mission Impossible. So are there any predictions with what a merger like this could mean for properties like that?
I'm sure Jeff has some.
No, I don't think he does.
Rocha, that thief, stole my idea again.
I just mentioned it.
That's why he's the outlaw.
You can embellish. I just mentioned it.
So we saw something a couple weeks or last week with Dora going from Nickelodeon. They tried tried to turn it into a movie. It skewed too old. Like Dora is for little kids, and so those little kids did not follow the character to the movie theater. I think what Paramount should do in Viacom, they should reverse engineer it. So you have a successful franchise like Mission Impossible, which started on TV way back when. They should be doing an IMF TV series for whatever their streaming service is, whether it's Paramount Network or CBS All Access. And those are, two things that have separate subscription services right now. I subscribe to CBS All Access. I don't subscribe to Paramount Network. And so to have all that, and I subscribe to Showtime, but to have all that under one roof for, an ultra low price of $14 or whatever, it seems like it would be worth it.
And there's the possibility that there could be even more under that roof in the future, because another bit of this Variety article said there's been chatter on Wall Street that the melding of CBS and Viacom is the first step in a larger effort to expand the company through more acquisitions. Discovery Inc. and Lionsgate have been mentioned as possible targets. CBS has already been in discussions with Lionsgate to acquire the Starz premium cable group. So is there any future for a movie studio to just exist on its own?
I don't think, not a large one, that's for sure. An independent one possibly. But I also think, this is the first time as I read this and saw what was happening here. This is the first time that Netflix should maybe start to get a little afraid of what's happening here, because as they become, as these studios become bigger and bigger and get these acquisitions, that means they acquire that content. How much of that content is going to go to Netflix, or was going to go to Netflix, or was going to go to Amazon Prime or Hulu? Now you start to worry that it's Netflix or Amazon Prime has to completely create their stuff from scratch, because maybe there's not enough content for them to put on their streaming services as this gets bigger, as these studios get bigger and bigger and consume more and more of the content. The libraries, rather.
I don't
just saying. I can't handle this all.
It's a lot.
I don't know why they would need Showtime and Starz. Like, I don't understand trying to acquire Starz from Lionsgate unless it is part of all those like deals that Starz has with movie studios. Because I feel like Starz may have the best movies out of HBO, Showtime, etc.
Look, Barry Bonds was a great baseball player. He didn't need the steroids, but he took it anyway. And you talk about that. That's what it is, about being the biggest guy in the room.
Taking another competitor out of the equation. So maybe that's going to help them out. And really, it feels to me like the name of the game right now is just get as much as you possibly can and then sell it for this much, so it competes with this, and this. And I have a feeling we're going to be talking about this a lot in the coming weeks and years on Movie Talk. All right, before we move into our Harry Henry roundup, I wish this could be a daily thing. We should always have a Harry Henry roundup, because you want that, don't you? I hope you do want a new show coming to the Collider Network later today, because we've got a new episode of Riley Roundtable coming soon. Check out this promo.
Hey guys, it's Riley here. Let me tell you about the Riley Roundtable. You know it, right? It drops every Thursday on Collider Conversations, and I have guests from all across the space. John Rocha, Gray Drake, Alexandre Desplat came on at one point. We talk everything from movies, we talk about life, and everything in between. What do you want to hear? What do you want to talk about? It's the Riley Roundtable every Thursday on Collider Conversations. You get it there.
Brace yourselves for this next plug, because I'm going to toss it to these two guys right here to talk about their podcast. But the first question I have for you both is, who is the first to come up with a fill-in-the-blank cut?
I was the first one. Whenever Jeff tries to, he tries to push this idea to Sneider. I remember when he pitched me the Sneider cut after I'd already started the deep cut, and I was like, sure, go ahead. It feels like a knockoff, but go ahead.
Where are you going to promote?
Are you serious?
If you'd like to listen to
Let me tell you something, folks. I pitched John Rocha the Sneider cut way before he even started a podcast.
Such a lie.
Then he gets a podcast before me, calls it the Deep Cut, which was already taken by A24, by the way. Anyways, they're different things. The Sneider cut, please. You obviously know what I'm riffing on. Deep Cut, John he takes one topic and really delves deep into it and explores it. So they're very different podcasts. Nobody's stepping on each other's toes. It's just a similar name.
It's just this weird timeline that you've created in your head that somehow you came up with it, and I just went,
let me add
something.
They're very different podcasts with great hosts, and you should listen to both of them.
Absolutely.
So where can they find your podcast?
You can find my podcast on the Collider weekly feed, which features Adam Chitwood and Matt Goldberg's podcast and Dave Trumbor's animation podcast, and then Rocha's.
You can find me on the Collider Conversations feed, which also features what you just saw, Riley Roundtable. We're both on there, and other interviews. Perry's done some interviews; those go on there. Any interview type thing goes on the Collider Conversations podcast, which is a lot of fun. I've got one coming out this weekend, coming out on Friday with Jason Inman talking about super soldiers, and then next week the directors of the documentary American Factory talk about what is happening to the American worker and their documentary reflecting that.
And I've got the director of Good Boys, Gene Stupnitsky, on this week. But yeah, this is the only set at Collider that's big enough for Rocha and I. We can't even be on the same channel.
Well, I was going to say I was glad we landed in a great spot, but yep, little friendly competition there. All right, going into our second story here today, we've got a lot of stuff. First on my list here, Harry Styles turns down the role of Prince Eric in the Little Mermaid movie. We also have a new trailer for Last Christmas, which of course stars Henry Golding and also Emilia Clarke. And then finally, Henry Golding is going to star in the G.I. Joe spin-off movie, Snake Eyes. According to THR, though, he is in negotiations right now for that, so it's not a done deal just yet. But with every story that I just read off, which catches your eye the most?
For me, it has to be the G.I. Joe story, because they've had two failed attempts in terms of quality of the G.I. Joe live-action movies. The second one with The Rock, where they killed off everyone from the first one, which was mind-blowing. But this idea of a spin-off movie, I love this. Snake Eyes has always been pretty much the favorite character in the G.I. Joe universe. The mystery of Snake Eyes, his battle with Storm Shadow, his Wolf Timber, his relationship with Scarlet. There's so much that Snake... Plus, he's a badass fighter with a lot of skills. But we never really knew 100% whether he was Asian or not. So this is an interesting casting choice. Storm Shadow we know was Asian, but we never really knew if Snake Eyes was Asian. And in fact, some of the earlier toys, you take off the mask, his eyes don't look like the typical Asian eyes of any or Asian origin, so to speak. So I found that to be very interesting that they went with Henry Golding, but I like it. What are they going to do with it? Where are they going to go? Golding's a good-looking dude, so it's a nice choice.
Every single time someone says they have skills, I automatically hear it in Napoleon Dynamite voice, and it didn't help that you were making faces when he was name dropping G.I. Joe.
We were making faces together, Perry, because you and I were clearly, our minds were blown to see Rocha geeking out over this very weird property.
I respect it. I was just a Ninja Turtles kid, so I didn't have G.I. Joes, and if that's what you're a big fan of, all the power to you.
Rocha's a military man. Listen, I had to bring up a message that one of our colleagues left in Slack. I will not out who it was, but they sort of, were getting behind Paramount's thinking. They're like, sure, Henry Golding, this guy's handsome, he's recognizable, he's increasingly popular. Let's put him behind a mask and let stunt people do most of the work.
It's a fair point.
It's like, this is a good and bad choice for him. It's a good choice because there's probably a little bit of money attached to this role, maybe $2 or $3 million. I would say this seems like his biggest payday, and good for him. Henry Golding has earned this moment. Do I think that Snake Eyes is a good career move for him? Absolutely not.
Wow.
I think this is a B level or C level franchise. Absolutely, especially without The Rock or Bruce Willis or whoever.
They have the potential to change that, but where it is right now, I would agree with you. And especially with Robert Schwenke attached to direct, that is not an encouraging element
thank you.
here.
That was the other element, Perry. It's like Schwenke, he's okay, but he doesn't really knock me out. I would not have done this if I was Henry Golding, but I also understand wanting to take a paycheck.
There's not a lot of feature roles for Asian actors. No, so you got to take what you can get so you can get to the next thing.
This is not a role for an Asian actor.
No,
I mean, I'd heard this could have been Nicholas Hoult just as easily.
Right, under the mask.
He probably just didn't want to be under a mask.
But you can put this on your resume as an actor. I'm the lead in a franchise film that is trying to resuscitate.
Which is great and great for diversity and inclusion. Yeah. But what happens if it fails?
Well, if it fails,
then it's like, I shouldn't have done it.
I mean, it's the risk you run with signing on to just about any franchise now. Just to give you a little more information on this film, according to THR, the script is said to center on Snake Eyes seeking revenge for his father's death by joining a ninja clan in the process of finding acceptance. All right, we have more to cover in this little block here. So I want to bring up a question from the live chat from Steve Calderon, who's asking, what are your thoughts on these theories that Henry Golding's character in Last Christmas is an angel or ghost? If you noticed in the trailer, we only see him in scenes with Emilia Clarke.
Yep. Yep. And she says, you're never around when I'm looking for you. You just kind of pop up. So as soon as I saw the trailer, I'm like, wait a minute. And you get that. So I'm glad that everyone else figured that out. Jeff probably figured it out first because nobody else can have an idea.
I had no idea.
Unless Jeff figures it out first, no one else can possibly have the idea.
Normally I know everything about these movies.
Yeah,
but no, I hadn't. That's
normally
a theory?
Jeff claims to have known everything.
I didn't even get the opportunity to like try to discover it for myself this morning because the first headline I saw was, oh, did they just give the twist away? And then, the little blurb underneath basically gives it away. So I've always watched this trailer with that in mind.
I legitimately did not think that this was a twist movie. The twist I thought is that she is Santa.
Well, she doesn't.
Michelle Yeoh, the boss.
She doesn't do.
That would be a fun.
She's Santa Claus. I know she's playing Santa Claus.
Captain Georgiou is
But I don't know if it's like she's Santa Claus in the store. This is her little elf.
I'm talking more of almost like a supernatural, kind of Santa Claus approach.
I don't know.
If that was the spin and the trailer makes you think that he's actually an angel when she is in fact Santa Claus, I would be all for that.
Well, look, I mean, it's certainly possible. Look, when she's getting wheeled in, she has dark brown hair. What is she when she's in most of the trailer? It's the light brown. Is she on that hospital bed the whole film having this whole fever dream about this relationship? And Henry Golding's her guardian angel. Her parents are in it. And Michelle Yeoh maybe is God even and trying to steer her back into life and what she can do with her life when she comes out of this thing.
I like this trailer a lot more than the first trailer.
Oh, I love this trailer.
I think it's the most appealing Emilia Clarke has been to me, I think, ever, because I'm not a big fan of hers. But I'm still confused as to the George Michael element of this movie. This was designed as like a George Michael musical.
The title literally is a George Michael song, a Wham song.
Okay, and they play Freedom at the end of the trailer, but I just don't get that. How do these two things go together?
I think this was the point of making this film. They wanted to make it a George Michael music inspired film,
which is weird.
There's a lot of songs on here that are apparently on the soundtrack that have never been heard before.
Well, I guess it's also because it feels so different from other movies in a similar vein that we've gotten this year. Like, let's say Blinded by the Light, which is coming up, and then not Rocket Man. What else am I thinking? Yesterday, where it is a direct reference to, let's say, the Beatles. So maybe it's just a different approach. So
it's a way of using an artist's music without having to do a biopic.
Yeah.
Inspired. All right, we do have one more story in this block to get to, and it's something that actually broke right when we were wrapping up movie talk yesterday, and I was bummed we didn't get to talk about it then. So Harry Styles has turned down the role of Prince Eric in Disney's live-action remake of The Little Mermaid. So given the fact that we were just discussing whether or not we thought it was a good move for Henry Golding to take the Snake Eyes role, do you think this was a good or bad decision on Styles' part to pass on this opportunity?
You want to go first?
Sure. I kind of like this idea. I like that he passed on it. You talk to me about a boy band singer trying to be an actor, and I immediately go, get out of here with that stuff. Show me something. He had a small part in Dunkirk and did all right. If you're trying to break out of this boy band connection, maybe going into a Disney film isn't where you want to go. Maybe going in the independent film route, a little more grittier, a little dirtier type film, a role rather. Maybe you want to do that. And so maybe stepping into maybe that Elvis film was that too. So stepping into something that you're going to be the love interest and you're going to deal with this idea of we want to make this very female centric, and more empowering than the original animated film. Then maybe you're only seen as an object rather than a character that's fully fleshed out and you can really show your acting skills. So to me, maybe that was his way of thinking, and I kind of applaud him moving off of that for that reason.
It's a reasonable thought process there, assuming that opportunity is on the horizon for him. Because especially comparing Little Mermaid to Snake Eyes, if you want to establish yourself with a big movie before going on to, using that acting clout to swing your weight around and get other smaller projects, Little Mermaid is the way to go about it. That is the safe bet, especially compared to Snake Eyes.
Yeah, I was a little surprised by it, but not 100%. I guess I'm mixed on it overall. I understand wanting to turn it down, wanting to do something a little bit edgier. I think, yes, that he thought he may have gotten that Elvis movie and was probably pretty disappointed when he didn't. I mean, he doesn't need the money, True. I think he wants to be paired with Hollywood's classic leading ladies. Like if this was Emma Stone as the Little Mermaid, I don't think he would turn it down. But to be romantically paired with Halle Bailey, who doesn't have a lot of experience, I could see why he may not want to be.
Show me his experience.
Not like that take.
Yeah, show me his experience.
Not that it's your fault, but if there's any truth to that, I do not approve.
If I was Harry Styles, I'd want to be working with Hollywood's top actresses.
Why? Well, don't you have to earn that position, for God's sakes? As Efron can't even do that 100%. And he's like got way more credibility than Harry Styles as an actor.
Maybe Efron will be the guy who comes in and takes over this role. He wouldn't even be a bad choice. I just
You want him for everything.
It's like being in a Disney movie directed by Rob Marshall and having some of these other people part of the product. Like, that's not good enough. I love it. And also, like, we can't necessarily say that is exactly
Right, of
his
course.
thought
No, of
process. We're
course
just
not.
speculating
I'm just
here.
speculating that, like, if I was Harry Styles, I don't know that I would want to, I'd want a more experienced co-star, I think.
All right.
That's Jeff Sneider for you, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's Jeff Sneider. Yeah, that's why I think like an agent and a manager, and that's why you turned it down, Rocha.
That's right. I turned it down for something better. And you know what? Because I believe in myself and I know something better is coming along.
Moving on to a story that we can actually back up, courtesy of some Jeff Sneider reporting. We have.
Wait, are we sure Rocha didn't break this story? No reporting from John Rocha? Okay.
Do you dare want to like tee this up?
Yeah, totally.
Alexandre Aja is going to direct an interactive haunted house movie for Amblin. Jeff,
Nice.
please tell us about it.
Aja coming off of Crawl, which is a modest hit this summer, made about $60 million worldwide on a budget of 13. He is going to work with the Haunting of Hill House guys, Mike Flanagan and Jeff Howard, as well as co-writer Nick Simon. This is an interactive horror movie, so basically it's a choose-your-own-adventure style thing. They're working with this company, Kino Industries, and they have this control movie technology, and it's basically an app that you'll be asked to download before you go into the movie theater, and the entire audience will then be able to vote on their phone for what they want to happen, and it'll change what happens in the film. It'll change the ending. It'll change the potentially the running time. So this is obviously an experiment. It's a bit of a gimmick, but I like it because I think that you need to do things like that to compete with these giant Disney tentpoles, and also the relative easy accessibility of streaming services. This will be a lower budgeted film, a haunted house movie, but I don't know. I think it sounds fun to me.
I am all for this idea. I was reading your report, and admittedly, when I hit the point where it said an app for your phone, my red flag went off, and I was saying to myself, before I even continued on with the article and really thought about it, I do not want cell phones in my movie theater, ever, ever, ever. But in this case, thinking about, because we're always talking about how important it is to have that communal vibe, especially when you're seeing something like a horror movie, to have that be a shared experience with a whole bunch of strangers. I don't know. That just sounds so exciting to me that, yeah, bring in the cell phones if that's what it takes to make it happen.
The history of the world is littered with people who took something that irritated other people and turned it around to make it work for them. And this sounds like that kind of situation. Who isn't irritated by seeing someone turn on their cell phone in the middle of a movie and do whatever and play a game, which I've seen before during a movie, which drives me insane, or text. Yeah. Imagine turning that in, having that, understanding that you can't stop the tide of that and go, okay, how do I take advantage of that situation? Oh, let me have them interact with their cell phones during a movie while they're watching something. That is brilliant to me. There's a certain kind of brilliance to that.
I do wonder if there's some sort of functionality where the app can at least, do things like automatically dim your screen, lock you into the app for the entirety of the movie, because that is something that I really wouldn't want to happen. If you can use it, you can use the app for the sake of the movie, but I don't want someone, when the choice is over, to go on over to Twitter and start scrolling through. So I hope whatever app component they come up with has some restrictions to it.
I mean, if someone wants to be on Twitter in a movie, they're going to be on Twitter in a movie. Like, that just sucks for the person next to them, I suppose.
Unless they're sitting next to me. Trust me, they won't be on Twitter.
I just think, obviously they're going to, I think you need to present the audience with a choice every few minutes, just like Black Mirror Bandersnatch did. So, to keep them engaged, so those phones probably will have to stay out. But everyone's going to have their head down voting at the same time, so then they're going to go back to the movie to see what their choices dictated. And I don't know. I think it could work. Do you guys remember doing this in the 90s? There was like this movie. It was either like Mr. Payback or Mr. Jealousy or something like that. I think it was Mr. Payback. You don't remember it?
I do not.
And they had actual devices in the theater. So you would like hit a button that was like on a console attached to your seat, and the audience would vote, and you'd get the ending or, whatever would happen. I think this is obviously the next wave of that.
Yeah.
And to have it, Spielberg and his company be the one driving it, I think it sounds pretty cool.
If there's any team behind something as ambitious as this, the group that you just named in this piece, I am all for it. I really do believe that if anyone could pull it off, it's this group right here. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this supersized edition of Collider Movie Talk. As always, I must thank my panelists, Jeff and Rocha. Thank you for being here. Dorian in the live chat, Adam in the booth back there. I'm leaving you guys now. I am off to North Bend, Washington, but guess who's going to host the show the next 2 days? That guy right there. Have fun. You're in good hands. Do not forget to like and share this episode of Movie Talk before you leave, and then tune in tomorrow, 3 p.m. PT Live, for a brand new one.